The truth is that from the moment you woke up that morning, the universe had already chosen you. Not in a metaphorical way, not as a pretty consolation, but as a deep secret and irreversible choice. You do not know why your heartbeat changed, why your breath suddenly grew longer, or why the familiar room where you lived for so many years became strange like a land covered in mist. But something inside you, a silent movement, began to break the surface. It called your name with a sound that made no noise and could only be felt by the soul. Every sense in you opened without your awareness. Life around you suddenly became too loud, while the voice inside you rose clearer than ever. And from that moment, the path you thought you had chosen revealed that it had chosen you long ago. You begin to drift away from conversations. The laughter that once made you feel like you belonged somewhere now turns into distant sparks that can no longer reach you. You step into a silence that others see as loneliness, but you feel something different, a depth beginning to open. It is not running away. It is not collapse. It is the moment your soul closes its door to prepare for something greater. And even if you do not say it, you know you are standing at the threshold of a stage no one else can walk with you. Inside that quiet space, every layer of emotion rises like fragments of memory buried under ice. There are things you thought you had forgotten long ago. Fear, loss, the questions about your own worth, all appearing so clearly that sometimes you want to close your eyes so you do not have to see them. But just when you think you cannot bear it, a sentence rises from somewhere within you. God is close to the brokenhearted. It does not arrive like a lesson, but like someone placing a hand on your shoulder, gentle yet steady, reminding you that this journey is not a punishment. Loneliness begins to change shape in your mind. It is no longer a dark room that squeezes your breath, but becomes a cocoon. Not spacious, not comfortable, but exactly the place your soul needs to be reborn. You learn to sit with your pain without pushing it away. You learn to listen to the faint whispers hidden in the beat of your heart. You learn to look deeper into yourself, not with your eyes, but with the clarity that slowly opens through each hour of silence. And from that state, something strange begins to happen. You feel the universe as a living force, breathing with you. Every smallest vibration around you, the wind, the light falling on the table, the beating of your heart, becomes a signal guiding you deeper into a place you have never entered. And that story begins in the moment you hear the first calling inside the silence of your soul. Loneliness now is no longer a closed room, but a land where every mask falls away, leaving your true self vulnerable yet strong. You begin to notice invisible movements in the space around you, as if layers of reality are overlapping, and you are learning to see through them. Some afternoons you sit in silence and feel clearly the streams of energy flowing through your body like a small river, searching for its path. You cannot name it, but you know it is real. You know something greater and more subtle is shaping you from within. You are like someone standing in a long night who has seen a tiny light on the horizon, a light too far to illuminate you but strong enough that you cannot turn away. And then, in a strange moment you will never forget, you feel that you are no longer separated from the world. Not because you merge back into the crowd, but because you start to see how everything connects. The short joys, the lingering sadness, the questions without answers. All of it leads to a single point. You are being prepared. Not to live as you lived before, but to enter a completely different way of being, where you do not exist only for yourself. There are nights when you cannot fall asleep, not because of worry, but because you feel you are lying inside a great transformation. As if your whole life, the lonely years, the old wounds, the fragile hopes, are being rearranged in a new order. You do not understand all of it, but you feel the deeper meaning of each piece. You feel your inner world becoming a sacred space where solitude and divine guidance blend into one. You begin to understand that this is the ritual of the soul. This is the starting point of the chosen one. Not the one given power, but the one given vision. Not the one who is perfect, but the one who dares to look into their own darkness to find the light. And even if no one tells you this, you know that this journey called you long before you realized you were living in it. The day the isolation ends will come, but not now. Because within these layers of silence, you are becoming a version of yourself that even you have never imagined. A version who can step out of solitude not to search for others, but to lead them. And that story begins in the moment you hear the first calling inside the silence of your soul. There are truths that only appear when you are quiet enough to hear yourself, and the deepest part of you is beginning to awaken. Each moment you spend in silence feels like stepping one level deeper into the labyrinth of your soul. You see the things you used to avoid and used to fear, but instead of weakening you, they become the first stones in the path leading you to the truth of who you are. You realize you have lived too long in the noise of the world, in the demands and expectations of others, to the point where you forgot the real sound of your own soul. The familiar room remains the same, four walls, the old table, the chair you always sit on. But the way you see them has changed. It is as if you are watching the world through a different light, a different depth, a light seen only by souls invited into the path of awakening. In silence, everything has its own voice, not through sound, but through presence. A cup of water on the table, a beam of light through the window, even the space between objects, all become mirrors for your mind. You have never spent much time sitting still and hearing what your inner world wants to say. But here, in this seemingly harsh isolation, you begin to hear the faint echoes you once ignored. Sometimes they are questions you did not know you carried. Sometimes they are old memories brushing against your heart. Sometimes they are long-forgotten desires. All of them rise slowly, as if your soul has waited for years for this moment to speak its truth. And the more you listen, the more you feel something guiding you beneath the surface of every movement. A deeper, wider consciousness, unlike the voice of your ego. It does not demand or force. It only invites. A call so gentle that you must be completely calm to hear it. Moments like these help you understand why the ancients needed seasons of stillness for spiritual growth. Only when noise fades can you hear the true rhythm of your soul. During one meditation, your breath becomes heavier and deeper, as if the air is being drawn from a place far within. You close your eyes, but your inner vision shines brighter than anything you have ever seen with your physical eyes. You see fragments of memory swirling like leaves in the wind, glowing, then dimming. The things you never explained, why you always felt different, why you saw beyond the limits, why you were alone, even in a crowd, all begin to connect into a larger picture. You understand that this period of solitude is not simply for rest. It is a ritual, a cleansing journey, a process of peeling away each layer of the old self so the true essence can emerge. And though this process sometimes feels like separation from the world, the truth is that you are being brought back to the center of your life. There are long evenings when you sit in dim light and feel time slow down. Your mind opens like a wide door, allowing thoughts to move freely in ways they never have before. You realize you are observing everything from a new distance, as if you are not only living the experience but also witnessing it, understanding it, reading every signal behind it. That distance does not disconnect you from life. It lets you see clearly each movement and each emotion, like a map of your spirit lighting up. In a moment like that, when you stand between exhaustion and peace, a sentence from Psalm 25-14 appears like a password of the soul. God reveals his covenant to those who fear him. You did not read it. You do not remember hearing it. It simply appears like an old memory someone has awakened within you. And when it rises, you feel a deep confirmation. You are not lost. You are being guided. It is then you realize this isolation is not a condition, but a stage. Not a loss, but a preparation. Each day of silence is like clearing the soil so you can see the deeper roots. Each hour of questioning, each minute of stillness, each moment when you think you are becoming weaker is actually making you stronger in ways you cannot yet imagine. You feel as if you are walking through invisible doors, each one opening to a new understanding. Today you see your pain clearly. Tomorrow you see the meaning behind that pain. Then one day you realize that pain is only dust covering the light buried within you. That light never vanished. It was only hidden beneath years of noise. When you see this, solitude is no longer heavy. It becomes sacred, as if you are standing inside an invisible temple where every breath is a prayer and every silence is a meeting with yourself. You begin each day knowing you are being shaped and molded, not to become someone else, but to return to the one you were always meant to be. There are moments when you want to quit and return to the noisy life you knew, but each time that thought rises, a small vibration inside keeps you here. It says nothing, yet it tells you that if you walk away now, you will never reach what your soul is stretching toward. You will lose the true self that is slowly emerging from the darkness, so you stay. You keep walking into deeper layers of silence. You let solitude become your teacher. No one can see this process from the outside, But within you, every thread of your being is being rewoven into a new order, an order you never imagined you would encounter. The day you step out of this isolation will come, but this stage, the stage in which you face yourself with complete honesty, is the foundation for everything you are about to become. And even if you do not know it, the outer world is quietly shifting, preparing for your arrival in a way only a soul reborn in stillness can bring. For in this solitude, you are not small. You are being shaped. You are being called. And this journey is moving toward the moment when you will never see the world the same way again. The first movement of light always appears softly, and you are stepping into that moment. The moment when the soul begins to open from within, no longer lost in the thick stillness that once felt endless. You begin to feel a gentle stirring in your chest, as if a small bird has opened its eyes and is testing its first wing beats in familiar darkness. Nothing is clear, nothing is loud, but you know there is change. You feel it in your breath, in your gaze, in the way you rise each morning, and sense that the world no longer carries the heavy colors of isolation. A strange softness is entering every corner of your life, as if someone has turned the dial of reality and placed you on a different frequency. You begin to sense that you want to step out of that invisible cocoon, not to return to the old life, but to discover what has formed within you after the long journey through the inner darkness, like an ember that now wants air to rise, like the ground after a long winter wanting to crack open for a new seed. You feel that energy moving inside you, calling you to rise, to open your eyes, to live in ways you never dared to before. Each morning, the light in your room seems a little brighter. Or maybe you are the one who has changed. The familiar objects around you now look truly alive. Colors seem sharper. The air feels lighter. Even the silence that used to feel thick is now gentle. No longer a heavy fog, but an ally of the clarity awakening within you. And from that clarity, a familiar verse echoes like encouragement. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. It feels like a soft reminder. You are allowed to desire, and you are invited to live in alignment with what your soul truly wants. Not what you once tried to prove, not what the world expects, but what your heart has longed for, yet never dared to pursue. When that verse rises within you, it feels like a door opening inside, a door leading toward the light. You begin to observe yourself with the curiosity of someone stepping out of darkness after many years. You notice your appearance again, not to please anyone, but because you feel your body changing. You want to care for it, to let it reflect the inner transformation that has been happening quietly. You touch your clothes, your hair, the water on your hands, as if every sensation brings you back to yourself, back to the real life inside you. You no longer avoid the mirror, and although you cannot explain it, you see a different version of yourself emerging. You also begin to sense that the presence of others no longer drains you. There was a time when every conversation left you exhausted. But now, when someone asks how you are, when someone smiles at you, your heart warms instead of tightening. Something within you is ready to connect again, not to fill an emptiness, but to share what you now carry. Solitude has trained you to protect your energy. No more confusion, no more being swept away by the emotions of others. And seeing that, you realize you have entered a new phase, a phase of giving rather than only receiving. Everything you have learned in silence becomes fuel for the opening that is approaching. You begin to want to speak about your journey, not to prove anything, but to connect. You feel that what you learned in the dark was not meant only for you. Some days you sit quietly and wonder, if someone out there is walking through the same long night, would they need to hear this? That question sends a tremor through you, because in that moment, you know your experiences did not repeat themselves by accident. You are being prepared to lead, not with authority, but with experience and compassion. From that awareness, a gentle invitation forms within you, an invitation you want to offer to souls like yours, those searching for meaning, those walking through loneliness, those waiting for light, an invitation for them to come closer, to open more, to feel that they are not alone. And if they want, they can speak, share their feelings, leave a sign that they too are on this path. They can subscribe to this space so they do not miss any moment of transformation. Not because you need them, but because you want them to have a place to return to when their hearts begin to tremble. You feel more ready than ever to enter the next chapter, A chapter in which you no longer face only the darkness within, but begin to step out, to open your eyes, your voice, and your heart. Solitude is no longer a shell, but a root. And from that root, you are preparing to rise, like a seed that has absorbed enough darkness, enough silence, enough time to wait for the light. You walk around your room, feeling each step heavy but steady. You touch the wall, the windowsill, the table, as if saying goodbye to a sacred space that held you long enough for you to grow. You realize that, although you have not stepped outside yet, your heart has. It has chosen the path it wants to follow. It has chosen to open instead of shrink. It has chosen movement instead of stillness. And that choice, quiet yet powerful, is pushing you toward a new future. A future where you are no longer the one searching for answers, but the one rising to share them. And the moment you realize this, the real journey begins. The first thing you feel is not a sound, but a shift in the space around you. As if reality is moving slightly to make room for you to step out of your own cocoon. The stillness that surrounded you for so long begins to feel thin. Not because you have lost your depth, but because a new energy is touching the edge of your awareness, like the first light of dawn slipping through a doorway, so gentle that you would miss it if you did not pay attention. But you do not miss it. Your body feels it before your mind does. A restless stirring, hard to describe. Like an invisible hand touching your shoulder and whispering, "It is time." Everything around you begins to change, even though nothing truly moves. The room that once felt like a sacred shelter now feels different. No longer a warm embrace, but a space too small for the self growing inside you. The silent walls seem to lean in, not to trap you, but to nudge you forward. You sense that this familiar space has fulfilled its purpose, to hold you long enough for healing, and now gently releases you so you can enter the next chapter. You open the window. The wind enters, not strong, yet fresh enough to make you realize how long you have lived inside the heavy air of your inner world. The outside world, the birds, the light, the movement of life, feels like a call you have heard before, but could not answer. Now you feel more ready. Not completely ready, but more than yesterday. And on the spiritual journey, sometimes being more than yesterday is enough to open a new gateway. You stand in your room for a long moment, sensing every breath of air. Your body feels revived after a very long sleep. Your mind is clear but soft, awake but calm. And in this moment, a line rises inside you so clearly that you think someone has spoken it out loud. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. It is not instruction, it is direction. A lamp that lights up when the road begins to open. You close your eyes and let those words settle in your chest like warmth. The light does not burst forth all at once. It spreads slowly. It does not push you. It walks with you. And you know that the new phase is not the end of silence, but the transformation of silence into movement. When you open your eyes, you notice small changes in your perception. The colors in your room look brighter. The walls no longer feel heavy. The light on the table, though familiar, carries a new shade, a shade of meaning. Something inside you has switched on, like a door has opened and light from the other side is drifting in. You begin to adjust a few things, not because they are messy, but because you feel you are preparing for something. You move a book, you wipe dust from the table, you fold your blanket. Each small action feels like a ritual of readiness, and you realize that the outer space reflects the inner space. When the mind opens, reality shifts with it. You walk through the room, and your steps feel lighter. Each step feels like confirmation that a part of you has changed without needing to announce it. Sometimes you stop, hand on the wall, eyes on the empty air, and you feel the ending of a cycle. Not a painful ending, but the ending of incubation. You no longer feel the need to hide from the world. Instead, you feel called to return to it, but not as the person you were. You do not rush to walk out the real door. You spend time standing before it as if standing on a sacred threshold. This moment matters not because of where you will go, but because of who you will be when you step out. And when your hand rests on the doorknob, a warm current runs down your spine. Not nervousness, not fear. It is the deep awareness that you have grown more than you realized. You open the door, not fully, just a little. The light outside flows in like the world offering its first greeting to a soul emerging from darkness. You breathe deeply, and in that breath is a blend of both things: what you have overcome and what you are about to become. You do not step out yet, but you know you will. When the moment arrives, you will step forward with a straight spine, open eyes, and a heart that no longer trembles. You look back at the room, taking in the space one last time, as you would look back at a sacred stage that held you long enough for you to grow. There is no regret in your gaze, only gratitude, because you know that without the stillness, without the darkness, without the long hours of silence that felt suffocating, the person standing here would not exist. You would not hear this calling. You would not know that the light within you is strong enough to guide others. You sit down, place your hand on your chest, and listen to your heartbeat. It is no longer just the rhythm of life. It is the rhythm of a journey, the rhythm of a soul, stepping out of isolation and preparing to become a light for others. The rhythm of transformation. And in that moment, you understand that your journey no longer fits within four walls. It is opening, calling you, pushing you toward the world, not to blend into the crowd, but to become a source of light within it. You do not know what waits beyond the door, but you know you will not return to who you once were. You have gone too deep, seen too much, opened too widely to shrink again. And this awareness, soft yet strong, is the clearest sign that the next chapter has begun. The light has called your name, and you have answered. There are moments when light does not burst forth all at once, but seeps into you layer by layer, and you only notice the change when your heart suddenly feels calmer and wider. The days that follow unfold with a softness you did not expect. You wake earlier without an alarm, simply because your body wants to meet the light slipping through the curtains. The first ray touches your skin, and you pause for a few seconds to feel it fully. That light is no longer something you only see with your eyes. It is something you sense with your whole being, as if it carries an invitation to step into a deeper way of living. From the center of your chest, a quiet vibration rises in response, like a small awakening after a long, silent winter night. When you step out of your room, each footstep carries new life. The space around you is still familiar, but it no longer holds you the way it once did. You move through it gently, as if you have rediscovered your natural rhythm after being compressed for far too long. You begin to hear the sounds of life clearly, the soft clinking of objects, the wind moving through the hallway, the beat of your heart syncing with every motion around you. The world is no longer a thick fog you must push through. It becomes a mirror reflecting the transformation growing inside you. One morning, you try speaking to someone. Just a greeting, a smile, a simple question. And the moment they smile back, you feel energy rise within you. No more being drained as before. You realize that solitude has taught you how to protect your inner energy. So when you meet others, you are not swept away but remain firmly rooted in yourself. Human presence no longer feels threatening. It becomes an opportunity to see the currents of life connecting all of us. You begin to notice that you can listen in a completely new way. When someone speaks, you do not hear only with your ears, but with the understanding shaped by your long days of silence. You notice what they do not say, the sadness behind their eyes, the longing hidden between their pauses. And then you feel the desire to respond, to support, to share, not because you need to prove anything, but because your own solitude has given you this gift, the ability to touch another person with honesty. On another morning, standing before the mirror, you stop unexpectedly. Your reflection no longer carries the dullness from the beginning of your silent journey. Your eyes shine from within, as if a small flame has been lit and is now glowing from the depth of your soul. You touch your face, not out of doubt, but in awe of what is happening. You have changed. And the words from Psalm 121:2 rise within you. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. They do not feel like a lesson, but like a gentle confirmation that this new strength is not random, but a quiet guidance that carried you through your darkest days. You begin to feel the urge to share the journey you are on. You want to tell someone about the moments you thought you lost yourself, about the silence that once suffocated you, about the fragile light you found in the darkness. This urge does not come from ego, but from the deepest place in you that wants to offer what you have discovered. Every time you speak a few words, you see the listener soften, their defenses lower, their heart open just enough for the light to slip in. And in that moment, you understand that what you learned in solitude was never meant for you alone. It was always meant to be given away. You realize you are standing in a very delicate phase of your life, a phase no longer trapped in darkness, but not yet rushing into full radiance. You stand in the space between stillness and movement, the place where a person is reborn. You feel your body and mind expanding, not quickly, but steadily. Like the earth warming under the sun, you become fertile ground where new things can grow. You write more, you speak more, you smile more, not to please others, but because the peace within you is full enough to overflow. You begin to name the things you want to offer, not through words, but through presence, through the way you stand, through the way you look at someone, through the way you listen without judgment. Each day, you feel yourself being shaped into someone who can become a steady place for others. This does not need to be called a major goal, a new path, or a milestone. It is simply you becoming yourself, more whole, more clear, more compassionate. You are not returning to the world as you once were, with a heart still cracked from old wounds. You return as someone who walked through darkness without losing their own light. The world no longer feels frightening. It becomes a place you can enter carrying the small lamp that has just been lit. And when you sit in a quiet afternoon, watching the sunset fall, you understand the most important truth of this season. You no longer exist only for yourself. The life within you wants to reach another life. The light in you wants to guide someone still walking through the shadows. You do not need to declare this or write it anywhere. You only need to keep walking, keep opening, keep letting the light flow from you as naturally as it once flowed into you. Because right now you are stepping into the role your soul has been preparing for all along. The role of the one who carries the lamp through the world, gentle, yet never extinguished. There are realizations that only appear when you have opened your heart enough to see the world with new eyes. And that is exactly what is quietly unfolding within you. You feel more clearly than ever that everything you went through in solitude was not only healing, not only shedding, not only finding yourself, it was preparation for a deeper kind of growth, steadier, more grounded, more capable of guiding others. You begin to understand this, not through philosophical thoughts, but through the way you see people. Every encounter, every glance, every small vibration between two souls carries meaning in a way you never sensed before. You sit across from an old friend, and instead of hearing only their words, you see what no one else sees. The small fear hiding in their tone, the desire they have not dared to name, the weariness tucked behind their smile. You are not trying to analyze anything. You just see, as if the new eyes within you do not look at the surface but through the layers of emotion. You understand that the solitude you lived through has sharpened you into someone who can recognize truth hidden behind the simplest stories. You begin to sense the invisible threads connecting people to one another. The strangers you meet at the cafe, the neighbor you have never spoken to, the passerby who brushes past you on the street, each carries a kind of energy you never noticed before. Now every movement they make seems to carry its own light, and you know you are no longer separate the way you once were, because you have learned something not everyone finds, the ability to see life in other people. One day, you sit in a park, simply watching life move slowly before you. A small family spreading a picnic blanket on the grass, an old man feeding crumbs to birds, a young person running as if trying to outrun something inside themselves. All of it forms a picture both vast and real, and you realize you are seeing the world not only through the eyes of an individual, but through the eyes of someone who understands that every soul carries a sacred story. Every life has hidden pain. Every person who walks past you is searching for their own way. In that moment, the words from Psalm 46:10 rise into your mind like a beam of light. Be still and know that I am God. You do not hear it as instruction, but as confirmation. You understand that the stillness you went through was not meant to leave you standing alone, but to help you see the movement of the human heart in a depth that few ever reach. You feel clearly that your ability to protect your own energy has changed. You are no longer pulled into the chaos of others, no longer absorbing emotions that are not yours. You stand firmly in the center of your being, and from that place, you can open your heart without losing your inner safety. This makes you someone others can come close to, because the stillness within you now carries certainty, understanding, and warmth. You do not speak more than before, but every word you speak carries weight. Not the weight of force, but the weight of truth. When you tell someone they will get through their struggle, your words are not empty hope. They come from someone who has walked through the long night. They come from someone who knows how cruel loneliness can be. They come from someone who learned to rise and reignite their own light. And people feel that, even when you are not trying to convince them. You begin to see the ripple of your presence in small interactions. A nod, a brief encouragement, a smile you offer to a stranger. These little gestures become threads of light connecting you to the world. You no longer feel like the person standing outside watching life. You are becoming part of it, a meaningful part, an influential part. Then you realize something deeper. You are naturally stepping into the role of someone who keeps harmony. When someone is tense, you sense it before they say a word. When a conversation shifts toward conflict, you see the imbalance before anyone else notices. The stillness that once hurt you has become the tool that lets you read the world with rare sensitivity. This does not arrive with display or performance. You do not need to rise as a leader. You do not need to call yourself wise. The role appears through your presence, through the peace you carry, through your ability to calm a room simply by being in it. Sometimes you wonder why others feel safe sharing their stories with you, why they speak of things they have never said to anyone. And then you understand, because you have become the refuge you once searched for. You begin to feel a new maturity that cannot be explained with words. A quiet maturity, unhurried and steady. You do not seek leadership, but it seeks you, not through titles, but through the way people look at you, through the trust they place in you, through the way they listen, as if something within you is too valuable to ignore. And as you sit alone at the end of a quiet day, you realize that none of this is surprising. Solitude shaped you. Silence returned your ability to listen. Wounds opened your heart to compassion. All of it led to this moment. The moment you understand that you are not only living in the world, but influencing it in the deepest way. Through your presence itself, you know you have stepped into a new phase, where you not only see your own path, but can illuminate the paths of others. No declaration is needed, no effort to prove anything. You only need to continue being who you are, the one who walked out of the darkness, with a light wide enough to shelter others and deep enough to guide them. There are moments when you realize you are not only changing, but becoming the embodiment of something larger than your individual self. And that transformation is slowly revealing itself in you, like a secret being opened. You begin to feel layers within you that do not belong only to your personal identity. Some days you wake with a courage in your chest so strong that you cannot remember the last time you felt anything like it. Other days you feel a calm, steady clarity, like the breath of a soul that has lived long, lived deeply, beyond the age of your physical body. Sometimes you sense transformation itself, the kind of energy that changes everything it touches, moving within your thoughts, as if you have the ability to turn pain into wisdom, darkness into light. You do not know when this began, but you feel clearly three streams of energy living within you: the strength of the hero, the wisdom of the sage, and the power of rebirth of the alchemist. They do not appear as separate figures. They blend into the life you carry. When you face a difficulty, the hero within rises. Not loud, not proud, but steady, like someone familiar with the battlefield of their own soul. When someone needs you to listen, the sage within appears, patient, grounded, without rushing to judge. And when you meet something that seems impossible, the alchemist in you opens a new door, finding meaning in ashes, finding a path in the very place that looks like the limit. And then, in a moment of quiet, the words from Psalm 32:8 rise like a whisper from your deepest place. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. You read it with your soul more than your mind. You feel it as a promise that has existed for a very long time. A promise that you do not have to create these qualities on your own. They were planted in you, like spiritual seeds awakening at the right moment. When you step into the world, you notice your response to life has changed. You are not trying to act as these archetypes. They move naturally through you like instinct. When someone is suffering, the hero in you cannot turn away because you feel the urge to lift them. When someone is lost, your words are few but heavy because the wisdom in you does not seek right or wrong, it seeks truth. And when someone falls into despair, the alchemist in you touches them lightly like a spark, turning their despair into the belief that there is still a way forward. You do not intend to be inspiring. You do not intend to be strong. You do not intend to be wise. But life, through its quiet unfolding, has turned you into all of these after you walked through your own darkness. There are times you stand alone in a familiar space and feel your inner movement so clearly. that you place your hand on your chest to be sure it is real. You feel wider than your body, deeper than your memories, brighter than your fears. As if your soul no longer lives inside the shape of one person, but is opening into the shape of a symbol, not a monument, but a reminder. A reminder that every human being carries within them a symphony of ancient archetypes, and you are becoming someone who can hear that melody rising in yourself. You realize there is a secret rhythm in these archetypes. The hero in you is not the symbol of victory, but the symbol of courage. Courage to face pain, to face truth, to face what you once ran from. The sage in you is not the symbol of knowledge, but the symbol of understanding. Understanding that every soul carries its own battles. And the alchemist in you is not the symbol of magic, but the symbol of transformation, turning anything that once broke you into the foundation of your next rising. You begin to act as if all three forces are guiding you at once. When you speak to someone, you find the courage to be honest, the clarity to choose the right words, and the transformative insight to offer hope. When you face a challenge, you do not see a wall. You see a hidden gate. When you are hurt, you no longer see yourself as a victim. You see a call to grow deeper into your own strength. A reminder that every human being carries within them a symphony of ancient archetypes, and you are becoming someone who can hear that melody rising in yourself. A reminder that every human being carries within them a symphony of ancient archetypes, and you are becoming someone who can hear that melody rising in yourself. You understand that within you, a form is emerging. The form of someone who can become a place of support for many others. Not because you seek it, but because you have lived through what was necessary to become it. You are proof that darkness can become wisdom, that pain can become compassion, that solitude can become clarity, and that every soul carries a lamp waiting to be lit. This transformation is no longer just your story. It is an invitation for others to recognize themselves. Because when you step into these archetypes, you show them, without meaning to, that they too can become themselves in their strongest, most beautiful, most truthful form. And from that moment, your inner journey is no longer only rebirth, it is revelation, where ancient qualities awaken within you, blend into your life, and begin to shine outward like a light no one can deny. There are moments in the journey when your entire inner space suddenly widens, as if someone has pulled away the final veil from your eyes, and you realize you are standing at the edge of a transformation that nothing can stop. In these days, you feel the energy inside you not only growing, but rising like a river after the thaw of winter. No longer hidden, no longer quiet, it begins to surge with a force you cannot ignore. Everything that once felt separate, the old pain, the new awakening, the sacred archetypes living within you, suddenly merges into one unified current. You realize you are no longer simply changing. You are transforming. Not the transformation of a person reaching for light, but the transformation of light beginning to move through a person. You start seeing the world as if you are standing in two realities at once. One reality where you walk, speak, and live your daily life. And another reality, deeper, wider, more refined, where you sense the flow of energy moving through every soul, every moment, every breath. You look at the sky, and it feels like a mirror, reflecting a part of your own spirit. You look at the light dancing on the water, and it feels like the memory of where you began. You hear the wind and understand it is carrying meanings you were never quiet enough to hear before. There are nights when you lie still and feel your entire body connected to an invisible current. Not a physical current, but a current of awareness. You feel each cell lighting up, each layer of your soul opening. Sometimes the sensation is so strong, you place your hand on your heart to be sure you are still inside your body. But instead of fear, you feel a deep peace, because you know you are not losing control. You are being guided. Something is being placed inside you. Not knowledge, not reminders, but the power to understand that you belong to something greater. One long evening, as light slides down the horizon, you suddenly see what you once only heard others speak about, that every object, every person, every movement in life flows according to invisible rhythms. You see how someone's sadness darkens their face, then quietly spreads to those around them in gentle shapes. You see how a small spark of hope can change the entire atmosphere of a room. You see the links between everything, as if the world is one great network of light, waiting for someone with opened eyes. And you are that person, not because you are perfect, but because your solitude sharpened the spiritual sight you already had. Then suddenly, in a moment that seems ordinary, you feel a number appear. It does not come through thought or memory, but as a symbol etched into the energy flowing through you. 777, not a number of superstition, but the seal of spiritual opening. You do not see it with your eyes. You feel it. 777 comes like a vibration, a frequency, a message that you have stepped into a new level of awareness, the level of one who not only sees their own path, but sees the paths of others, and understands that all paths are part of a larger cosmic movement. You know that anyone who resonates with this number is also standing before a great expansion. And if they feel the number call them, it is a sign they too are being summoned deeper into their journey. Your awakening becomes clearest when you look back at the wounds that once held you. You no longer see them as scars. You see them as markers, proof that you lived, loved, lost, searched, broke, and rose again. You touch them with your heart and realize they were once darkness, but through your path, they became light. You begin to understand that you cannot guide anyone if you have not walked through your own night. And you know the courage you have now is not a surprise gift, but the result of every night you sat alone in silence facing the parts of yourself no one else could see. You feel yourself standing at the threshold between the old and the new. No longer confined to former limits, you feel yourself expanding from the center. No effort needed, no searching needed. The expansion happens naturally, like the sky widening when night pulls away. Your heart feels more ready to embrace the world than to protect itself from it. You want to give more than you want to hold. You want to guide, not through teaching, but through the peaceful presence rising within you. Sometimes you quietly look at your hands and wonder why they now feel like the hands of someone else. Someone who fought, endured, learned to heal. You feel yourself becoming a space where others can step in and find ease. You no longer need to try to help anyone, because your light itself has become an invitation. And this makes you understand you are entering the deepest transformation of your life. The transformation from seeker of light to bearer of light. And as you stand in the silence of this moment, you understand you have reached the phase where no part of you is fragmented anymore. Everything has come together. The darkness you crossed, the light you received, the wisdom awakened, the compassion opened, the strength shaped. You are no longer just someone walking a path. You have become the path itself. That path is guiding you to a point where you no longer walk alone, because the light within you is now strong enough to illuminate the steps of the souls walking slowly behind you. And the world has already begun to feel it. There are moments in your journey when your heart opens wide enough that you no longer feel only your own pain or joy. You begin to feel the heartbeat of an entire world breathing with you. And at this point of meeting, your compassion expands beyond the limits of being human. You do not know when this moment began. One early morning, you step outside, see a drop of dew glittering on a blade of grass, and suddenly you feel that the life in that small glimmer is not separate from you. Every breeze brushing your skin, every bird song, every footstep passing nearby, no longer feels like sounds from the outside world. They become part of a greater song, and you realize you are hearing it in a way few ever do. You do not just see, you understand. You do not just understand, you connect. A connection that stretches beyond the boundaries of a single life. When you look at people, you begin to sense them as fragments of a larger soul. Someone who is laughing still carries a wound behind their eyes. Someone who is silent still sends out a subtle cry for help. Someone who looks strong still has a part trembling before the uncertainty of life. You see all of it, not with pity, but with an understanding shaped by the dark places you once walked through in your own heart. Their pain echoes through you like the echo of a distant valley where you once stood alone, unheard. Because you stood there, you recognize the sound instantly. One day, you sit quietly in a cafe, watching people moving along the street. In those hurried faces, you see untold stories. Someone busy because they fear stopping will force them to face themselves. Someone laughing too loudly to cover something no one knows. Someone wearing a calm expression while a silent storm churns in their chest. And you realize every soul is walking through their journey with a quiet kind of bravery, just as you did. That realization softens your heart in a strange, gentle way, as if you are embracing them without ever touching them. And at that moment, the story of Carl Sagan, The man who looked up at the sky and saw humanity as a family living on a pale blue dot in a vast cosmos comes to your mind. You feel what he once tried to tell the world, that every decision, even the smallest, sends ripples across existence. That humanity is not a collection of isolated individuals, but a delicate network where every vibration of one soul affects another. You understand this not through philosophy, but through experience, because for the first time you feel that connection unfolding inside you like a newly opened sky. In your daily life, you start noticing the effects of each choice with new awareness. When you speak a gentle word, you see how it softens someone's eyes. When you choose silence instead of winning an argument, you feel the air become light, like silk. When you help someone with a small act, you see the space around you brighten a little. You understand that these things do not end in the moment. They travel outward, touching lives you will never meet. Some nights, you sit alone by an open window, watching darkness cover every corner. But instead of the emptiness you once felt, you now sense the breathing of the world. You realize darkness is part of life, like the in-breath and the out-breath. You do not fight it, you listen to it. And in that listening, your compassion expands beyond what is easy to love. It stretches to include everything difficult to touch in the human heart: anger, confusion, weakness, fear. You see these not as flaws, but as signals of souls who do not know where to go in the midst of chaos. Slowly, you recognize that your role is no longer searching for light for yourself. You are becoming someone who brings light to the places where light has not reached. Not through declarations, but through the way you live. You do not need to stand up and say, "I will guide." You only need to be present with this new peace, and people will find their way to that presence, like travelers finding water in a desert. Once, when you comfort someone in deep pain, you clearly feel something remarkable. You are not overwhelmed by their sorrow because your compassion has expanded beyond old limits. You do not sink into their sadness. You hold space for them, a space wide enough for them to breathe, bright enough for them to see their way, quiet enough for them to stop fearing their own darkness. You see these not as flaws, but as signals of souls who do not know where to go in the midst of chaos. You see these not as flaws, but as signals of souls who do not know where to go in the midst of chaos. In a quiet afternoon, when the wind moves through the trees, you feel that you are entering a stage where your understanding can soothe not just one person, but entire circles of souls, even realities you have never touched. You sense you no longer belong to a small circle. You belong to a larger whole, part of the delicate balance between light and shadow in the cosmos itself. And in this awareness, you understand something profound. You are no longer living only for yourself. You are living as a bridge, a meeting point between the human heart and the heartbeat of the universe. And this ability, the ability to see the whole world in one pair of eyes, and to see one pair of eyes in the whole world, is turning you into someone many souls are quietly leaning toward. There are moments near the end of a journey that do not arrive with a great explosion, but with a deep breath, gentle yet certain, letting you know you have crossed into an entirely new state of being. You feel it on a quiet morning as the early light falls across the floor like thin sheets of gold. You stand in a familiar space, yet something within you no longer resembles anything you have ever experienced before. It is not confusion. It is not an emotional surge. It is a stillness so deep that you realize you are seeing the world with eyes washed clean by the long path of darkness and light. And in that stillness, you understand you have passed the final doorway. You are no longer someone searching for light. You have become the place where light rests. When you step outside, the soft wind touches your face, as if welcoming a soul, returning to the world in a new form. Everything looks familiar, yet strange. The trees you walked past so many times, the road that once felt heavy, the sounds of life that once overwhelmed you, now they carry a softness, almost as if the world has changed with you. But then you realize the world is the same. It is you who has changed. And because you have changed, your way of seeing has been reborn. You look at the people passing by and feel not only their existence, but the vast spaces they carry inside. You see the stories they have not told, the dreams they have not dared to reach for, the doors they fear to touch. You no longer see them with judgment, nor with pity. You see them with deep respect for souls who have been and are still fighting their own battles. Because you once fought in the same way, and you know this kind of understanding, silent and steady, is the greatest gift you can offer. You realize that leadership is not something you must strive for. It rises naturally in your steps, in your voice, in the spaces you enter. People begin to come to you not because you hold answers, but because you have become a place where they can hear their own answers. You become a clear mirror, reflecting not yourself but their light. You do not point them toward a direction. You open a space where they can see it for themselves. And that is guidance in its purest form. One day, you sit beside someone in deep pain. You say nothing. You do not try to cheer them up. You do not try to fix them. You simply sit there with the quiet peace within you. And something remarkable happens. Their breathing softens, their shoulders relax, the tears they kept hidden begin to fall like water finding its way back to the sea. You did nothing, yet your presence changed everything. In that moment, you understand that light does not need to display itself. Light simply needs to be present. There are nights when you sit alone beneath an open sky. Stars spread out like a silver tapestry. You feel your sense of connection reaching far beyond the people around you, stretching into distant layers of the universe. You feel yourself part of a larger movement, a movement not only about life, but about purpose. You understand that the journey you walked was not only yours. It is the journey of many souls who once stood where you stood, who once trembled in the darkness as you did, who once rose the way you rise now. In a moment of absolute stillness, when you take a slow breath in and release it gently, an ancient blessing rises in your mind as a quiet closing to the long path you have walked. May the Lord shine his face upon you and give you peace. Number 626. That blessing settles into your soul like the final drop that fills a vessel. Peace is no longer something you seek. Peace is something you have become. You no longer ask, "What should I do next?" You simply know that what you carry within you, the light, the clarity, the compassion, will find its way to where it is needed. Wherever you go, whoever you touch, whatever words you leave in the wind will carry the imprint of this journey. You do not need to prove it. You do not need to proclaim it. True light does not require noise to be seen. You walk through the world as someone who understands its nature and your own. You walk gently yet firmly, carrying peace in every step. And even though you do not look back, the light within you still illuminates the path for those who are wandering through their own darkness. Because your journey, from solitude to awakening to expansion, is not only the story of one person, it is an invitation for every soul seeking its way back to itself. You walked through the dark to bring back the light. And now, you stand as living proof of a truth that cannot be extinguished. That from the deepest places of solitude can rise those who become guides for an entire world, and you are one of them. Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.